introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. With this chaos, I've had to run across to my neighbors, so I'm in their bedroom. We've also picked up there might be a bit of a lag. So what I'm going to do, just to save that bandwidth, is stop sharing my camera. But just firstly, to give an introduction before I share my slides. Around 15 years experience in user experience design. I've been from customers, from agency side to customers, Standard Bank, 6 years, heading up their core banking team, around 150 user experience designers, and now I'm in consulting and helping teams grow their digital competencies. And so this conversation is really just to have a look at some of the things that I've picked up and some of the things that I think we could be doing better. So just let me share my screen for a second and we can get into it. And as always, technology will fail. Okay, share screen, and there we go. Okay, great. So yeah, just to recap the topic for the next 20 minutes, is just to expose some of the challenges that I've noticed within the context of the digital teams that I've worked in South Africa, and those who are specifically trying to scale their design teams whilst remaining focused on delivering value to their customers. Now, in doing so, we need to be cognizant of the fact that this is not their core business. If we think of banks, financial institutions, they are trying to sell a banking product. However, they are the ones spending the most money in this area, and therefore, we need to maintain our expertise in this field and really guide that process. So let's have a look at the current context, where I've seen teams potentially fail, and how I think we could succeed going forward. All right, so a quote taken here from Harvard Business Review has indicated that IBM has spent more than 100 million to expand its digital design practice, including 1,000 new employees and over across 10 experience labs. Along the lines of consultancy firms, the likes of McKinsey, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, which are traditionally your accounting firms, have also started to acquire design shops in order to meet the growing demand field in this expertise of design. So what that's really telling us is that this this expertise that we have, the skill set that we have, is not going away. In fact, it's on the up at the moment, and it's been taken note of, and there's a lot of money being poured into it. If we look at another international trend here, a company called MailChimp, they do marketing mailers. They grew from 8 to 550 staff members in the space of 8 years. Again, just to show that rapid development and how digital is just taking over. Now I want to take a step back now and look at the South African context. Again, these numbers are not here to be interrogated if you work at Standard Bank, Nedbank, or ABSA. This is the more or less numbers. But the intention of this is just to showcase how the number of design teams have grown, specifically in these big corporates in the bank space. So someone like IQ Business, where I work, we've got about 180 consultants who can respond to the market, who are placed at ABSA, Nedbank, and Standard Bank. But just in terms of them growing their own competencies, be it consultants or their own internal staff, you can see, I mean, those are just under IQ, the top 3 sort of design teams that I know of in South Africa. And what else is interesting there is we've seen a growth rate at about 1 to 5 developers. In the past, it was probably 1 to 10, 1 to 15. A lot more devs were being prioritized, and we've seen the adoption of more designers coming into the space. Then just to recap in terms of the organizational structure, I mean, for those who are working in the corporates, probably be familiar with this, but just have a recap. I mean, you've generally got your Batman CEO who has a number of executives, the CIO, and then you've got this head of digital, and they might sit on the executive board as well. Then they might have a foundation team, so a team looking after their design system. They might have a marketing person who assists them with launching the product once bought by the squad. And then traditionally, you've got these role players in your squad, and you could have between 1 to 10 squads. In my experience, 5 to 7 is the most manageable. Otherwise, what you get happening is people working on similar functionality, and that can cause rework down the line. And then it's also been touched on previous talks that I've listened to today, but also that need for that content person. So we've also seen a copywriter sitting across a number of squads. All right, so now we're going to get into the crux of the matter. So you all should know this. It's the 5-step design thinking methodology that us as user experience designers or practitioners use to take a business requirement all the way through to being a product or service in the hands of customers. Well, here's the bad news. The bad news is that for our focus for corporates is on ideate, at wireframes, at prototyping, and in production to the customer. Now, that means we're missing out 3 crucial steps. And this conversation that's from here on in is going to be to look at why are those 3 steps so crucial and what are we missing by not attending to those. And it really made me think, does that mean that design is equal to wireframes plus usability testing? Are we just a wireframe factory shop? And does customer input only extend as far as saying, well, we've got this app, I really hope you like it, because that's the only time we're getting input from them, is right at the end, when we've got these beautiful glossy wireframes in mobile or app, and we're actually not even taking that feedback into consideration. It's never going on a backlog for backlog refinement. We're busy going on to the next MVP. And that makes me sad emoji. So I got a quote here, and I know this is a shock horror. You can have a look. I think the stat on Google says 0.01%. So 99% of apps fail. And why is this? It's because we're not talking to customers. We're not getting an understanding of their pain points and their frustrations. And we're launching these based on what business thinks is a good idea and what works for the development team to get it out as quickly as possible. But monetarily wise, 99% fail. And there's another quote that supports this statement, which is by Frank Chimero, who says that people ignore design that ignores people. So if we do not engage with our customers, we're not going to get their buy-in to the product. All right, so now let's have a look at some of the things that I think could improve. So what I'm going to do is go through steps 1, 2, and 3 of the design thinking methodology. And the first is obviously empathize. So one of the things that we are not doing is taking good briefs. Now, I understand that it's generally the role of the BA to get those briefs, but from a user experience designer perspective, we should be having those conversations around what does success look like to the business. Our role is to really play that middleman between making business happy in terms of they've spent money on this product, and then the customer happy. So we're that middle man, and we need to get the perspective from the customer and our customer interviews by showing them a concept at this stage and saying to them, we're looking at this product or service, what do you think of it? Would you use it? How would you use it? Understanding their mental models, creating personas, mocking up their as-is user journeys. And then competitor analysis. Another sad emoji face here is that what I'm seeing is we're comparing bank screens to bank screens. Now, we need to be going a little bit broader than that. I once completed a financial dashboard for Hollard, and to get away from those boring bar charts and line charts, we looked at Nike, and then this was 5-6 years ago, where they've got their fitness app, which the dial has now become popular. But we had bars that would float in and show your incomes and expenses. And what I'm really alluding to there is to start pushing ourselves to look outside of industries, looking outside of the financial industries if we're working in it, not just trying to compete or do one up on what our competitor has put on. So whilst it's fine to keep an eye on our direct competition, in terms of innovation, we really need to stretch ourselves and look outside. I just wanted to touch on customer interviews and why is it important. And the lot of feedback I get is that business don't see the value in doing these customer interviews up front. And I've got some ways in which I feel you can motivate that. Right at the end, I'll discuss that with you. But just to recap why we need to do it. Well, it gives us an overall experience journey. It gives us their first impressions, mental models. We understand their user goals and their pain points. Okay, so these are some of the reasons why we should be doing those. All right, so if we look now at the second phase, which is analyze, this consists of personas, empathy maps, customer journeys, and information architecture. The first three, I think we are doing medium to okay. And I say that because I haven't seen a lot of people putting up their personas up on the walls. There seems to, because there's a lack of interviews not happening in the first phase, the personas that we are mocking up are fictitious and don't actually add any substantial value. But what I want to say there is, if you've had those conversations up front, let's put those personas up. And we're working with digital tools. 90% of people saying they've learned a new digital tool since having working at home in COVID. I did a little survey with some people on LinkedIn. I'll share some more stats with you on that now. But then translate those into a freehand or mirror board and share them with people. Get them to put stickies up and make comments. Ask questions and engage with marketing. Understand what data do they already have on the customer, and try and get a shared view of that customer. Work and formulate a relationship with your marketing team. And then shared learning. So let's collaborate with our other squads. Find out, what products or service are they creating? What users did they speak to? There might be data there that we can already leverage off. So just in terms of those user journeys, I've seen a couple of big organizations working off an Excel spreadsheet, which makes it extremely difficult to print up because it goes over pages and pages, and it's difficult to edit and manipulate. It's quite a tedious thing. So a tool that I've started using is called uxsouthafrica. On the right-hand side there, they've got a persona template. They've got a user journey template. It's drag and drop. It's so easy to use. And if this one doesn't suit you, go and have a look at some others. But the point here is that it really makes the work look professional. So we've got a higher quality delivery of work. It saves you time. It's easy for version control and collaboration. You can share it with all of your squad. So your product owners can come on there, your developers, and people can make comments. And again, you can export that into a PDF or to a PNG and put that into your Miro or freehand. So just more on those stats, as I said, just did a quick survey to find out how has COVID affected digital employees. So a great stat there showing that almost 80% of people showing they've been more productive. And I mean, I can understand that from the fact that we, sit at our desks and someone wants to go for coffee and someone wants to have a quick design review, another meeting. It can really slow you down, and you end up having to catch up your work in the evening. So that's really productive, really a great statistic there. And it also shows that this micromanagement of sitting at a desk from 8 to 5 hasn't necessarily been working. An interesting factor as well is 50% of people say they miss their colleagues, and another 50% say that they believe execution is better executed in person. So I think the second step really talks to us as user experience designers wanting and needing that human interaction, and us as human beings. And so there's no real surprise there for me. And that need to collaborate, as I said previously, for me, I've been using Miro, and I've done a couple of workshops now on COVID that have been really super successful. And so I think we can use that collaboration space digitally if we just get better with the tools that are available to us. And that really leads me on to the ideation phase, and something that we're not doing. So on the one side, we're saying we do want to collaborate with our colleagues, but on the other hand, what I'm not seeing are these co-creation sessions. So this co-creation session should be a playback of, these are the customers we've spoken to, and this is their pain points. These are some of the things that would or wouldn't work, and then brainstorming with your devs, with your product owners, and asking for ideas. Remember, the aim of these sessions are not to judge and analyze that idea. You basically put it onto a parking lot, and after the session, you work through each idea and decide what you want to take forward. And then another point that's definitely not happening in ideation is paper prototypes. So we've become so used to taking a requirement from business, and the business wants to see a wireframe, so we give them a wireframe. But we're too now scared to go and show our scribbles to our colleagues or even to our product owners. But that saves us time, and it allows us to refine that solution over and over until we are comfortable to put it onto software. So I really implore you to go back to basics and paper and pen. All right, so last few slides. How do we succeed? So just to recap, as I said to you, corporate South Africa, from what I've seen, has really sort of pushed us into this wireframe factory house, and we're only focusing really on stages 3, 4, and 5. And I think what we need to do is demonstrate value. So in line with customer interviews, host guerrilla testing in the office or the canteen. Pay your friends and family online by offering them a coffee, a food voucher, or even doing chores at home. Just remember that data shapes design. Develop those relationships with business, legal, and compliance. We know that if you bring them along the journey, if you show them the customer interviews, if you invite them to iterative reviews, they will be more on your side and more open to being more lenient in terms of those legal and compliance requirements. And this could be a contentious thing, but job satisfaction in terms of design systems, although I am an advocate for it, what I've seen is this can be disempowering for a uxsa. Uxsa is a problem solver. And a lot of the times what I'm seeing is when there's a new pattern that's needed to be designed, it's given to the foundation team, and then that then leaves the uxsa getting a design prescribed. So allow them to do that problem solving and to play it back to that foundation team. And then collaboration beyond design. That's just to recap that point to say, bring in your developers, involve them. You'll have less resistance to your wireframes if they've had an input in the thinking towards that. And then lastly, take the lead in presenting tools, processes, anything that you can do to optimize the work and the quality, and to really sell your expertise. You've got to push and lead that conversation with the business that's focusing on banking. They need to take the advice from you. So we really need to flip it in that regard. And last but not least, fight for your users. Thank you.
Candice, thank you so much for that talk. I can't see you, but I think you're just off. Thank you so much. Some comments on the side there. Just checking if there's any questions from the audience for Candice. I think one of the questions from Sarah Jenkins was, is that uxsouthafrica? Would love to hear some more of your motivations. That's from Samantha. I mean, if you have any more to share, please share.
Yeah, so I mean, you can go and I think you get a one demo, so you get one persona and one journey, and they've got a whole lot of pre-populated templates. So you can choose banking and finance, and it will give you pre-populated templates. You can choose customer journeys, service design journeys. They've got a whole lot, and yeah, it's really easy to use. You can mock one up in less than 10 minutes. It's really cool.
There's one thing that you said now at the end that I found quite interesting. When you said sketches, that is not paper prototyping, that is not being utilized enough. Can you maybe expand on that as to, why do you think there's obviously a rise in using the online tools and the visual tools, and I think that has seen one of the reasons why there's a decline in paper prototyping and sketches. I mean, I think many people advocate for that. I'm obviously one of those people as well. I believe in sketches and paper prototyping, but can I ask you to elaborate on why do you think that has happened, or why so many or few people are actually doing it? Do you think it's because people's joining the industry and all these tools are available and they're just consuming those tools and not the fundamental reasons of paper prototyping or any other reasons?
Yeah, so I think we've lost the basics. I think people think design is a wireframe. So I think that's really the main point of this talk, is that we've been selling this idea that we get an idea and it gets from agile into a product and in the hands of a customer. And we're forgetting about all the other things that need to happen. And for paper wireframing is one of those things. So we think that we're supposed to just start on a software tool and start, putting in buttons and images. But, scribbling, tearing up a piece of paper, crazy eights, as mentioned by someone else that presented, are there to help you to iterate ideas and get ideas flowing. And then once you've got that down to these are my 5 screens, then you commit that to software. If you had to do all those iterations at the top on paper on the software, it could take you forever. And also you're more biased because now you've invested time. So if someone gives you feedback to change something, you're going to be a bit more resistant to that because now you spend 5-6 hours, versus if I draw something on a piece of paper and you don't like it, took me 2 seconds, I don't mind, and I'll try to scribble something else.
Yeah, and I guess people are also less sensitive about paper, and the having it as something to throw away, as opposed to, I mean, many people are very protective over their designs, and the idea of scrapping a design, or just burning it, it doesn't sit easy with many.
Yeah, definitely.
So we've got a question, and it's from Andre. Do you use a general copywriter, or is the copywriter specialized in UX?
So, I mean, so what I've seen is there has been a UX copywriter. So it's actually a new job title that's coming into the field. But a lot of the times, what has also been the case is someone from the marketing team that has a strength in copywriting that maybe writes their press releases. They would also be assigned or available as a resource that you could leverage off. So just find out from your clients who you can use, because it's important that they understand the brand's tone, the brand's strategy, so that they do the wording in line with that.
Nico says very good point. Well, to add to that, so the second part of that, or is the copywriter specialized in UX? What is your thoughts on that? I mean, so there's a few companies that have UX writers, not copywriters. They have UX writers. I know companies like Luno and Take a Lot. They've got UX writers. What is your thoughts on that? How do you feel about UX writers? What is the difference between the conventional copywriter and UX writer?
Honestly, I just feel like it's a title, because at the end of the day, that UX copywriter is not doing any UX; they're just doing copywriting. I think they might be more tuned into the squad or the digital space, versus bringing a person from marketing into the squad environment, and they don't have that feel for it. That might be the only difference. I think it's just a job title thing. At the end of the day, they need to understand who we're speaking to and match that in terms of the brand strategy.
Interesting. Thank you. So we've got another question here, and this is from Chris. You mentioned a few of the big banks, Absa, Standard Bank, Nedbank. Which other design teams are you the lead in SA?
Am I leading SA? Which other ones am I involved in at the moment?
Yeah, I think maybe involved, because the question is, which other design teams are in the lead in SA?
Oh, okay. So I know that there's quite a big design contingency for Backbase. They're based in Amsterdam. Sorry, I'm just trying to think out loud. So the banks are the main. I've seen where most of the assets are put in. I mentioned their native VML. They're a digital agency. I think they've got about 60 to 80 digital designers, and they're really focused on user experience design. I also just recently have been working for Mauritius Bank. I was really trying to get onto the beach, and then I had my flights and it was cancelled because of COVID. But I'm still hopeful. And they're starting to also get out 20 to 30 designers. What I'm just seeing is it's pockets of design teams growing, but the big ones are definitely the banks at the moment.
Okay, and the financial institutions. Maybe just taking another second or two just to check if there's any more other questions from anyone else. I see some comments. Very good point. I really understand the use of wireframing. Totally agree with paper prototyping. I don't think there's any more questions. If you do want to reach out to Candice, and she's available on LinkedIn, happy to connect you. If you do have any follow-up questions for Candice. Yeah, Candice, thank you so much for the awesome talk.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Oh, there's one more question.
Okay, sure.
So this is from Sarah Jenkins. Thanks for the great talk. For beginner UXers wanting to grow fast, would you recommend starting in-house or working for a consultancy?
It's a tough one. I've done both. So I started. So if you say an in-house, meaning client side, I wouldn't recommend it. Your level of exposure to the the full end-to-end of UX is limited. If you're talking agency, that's cool because you will get into a client and have to do everything. As well as being at a consultancy, you also probably have a chance of being placed at a client where they need you to push all skill sets. So I wouldn't recommend going too narrow in terms of applying at a standard bank, because you'll probably be performing one function. That's the other thing I've seen is if you're at a team, you're literally the person who does a wireframe. Then you've got a guy who does the UI. Then you've got another person who does the testing. When I started 15 years ago, you did everything. You did the customer interviews. So I feel like we're missing a bit of that, although I do understand why you do usability separately because you don't want to be defensive of your work. But I feel that try and look for an opportunity as a beginner, be exposed to as much of UX as possible so that you can start to gain experience in all those other spheres.
I think there's an interesting bit of piece of information in that question. So the fast part, to grow fast.
Yeah.
You know, that for me, when I see something like that, where someone needs to kind of ramp up very fast, I always want to know why. Why is there this need to push growth fast, regardless of whether it's in-house or working for a consultancy? Because essentially it could impact you very negatively, and you could miss some of the things that you're highlighting, the fundamentals. I don't know. What do you think about what I'm mentioning?
Yeah, so I think you're spot on. Like it's taken me 10 to 15 years, and I've probably only started doing a mental model 2-3 years ago, because I didn't know it existed, and so I think it is an evolving. As you progress in your career, you do evolve and you do learn new things. What else I can suggest is, I do a bit of a mentorship with some of my graduates at IQ. We also run a boot camp, which is not me plugging anything, but over the 4 half days, you literally do work through all 10 stages of UX. So there are some programs like that. There might be courses on Udemy or on YouTube where you can just have a look and get a bit of like a bird's eye view of what the different phases or steps are, and then pick one and get a mentor where you can complete a mental model and say, is this right? What do you think? So that's what I'd do. I'd pick a topic, go research it, and then give it a go and get some feedback.
Thank you. Cool. Siri, if you have any questions or need some assistance, or please reach out to us. We're happy to connect you with some people as well. Thank you so much, Candice. I don't think there's any more questions.